This is your first night in the business. They gave you a small package, a few little baggies, and instructions that seem simple. Move fast and don't stay in one place. But what they didn't tell you is that this corner was already claimed long before you arrived, and you're not welcome. You're nervous. The streets you used to walk no longer feel safe. You look up at the apartment balconies, the shadows, the cars slowing down, and you can't help but think that anyone could be a cop, an informant, or a thief. In your pocket, you carry merchandise that could land you in prison or in a grave. And still, you have to smile as if you were selling candy. They paint a pretty picture for you. You'll make good money with little effort. And if you obey and earn the boss's trust, he'll treat you well, and you'll have protection. But the reality is different. You're out there, exposed, the cold seeping into your bones, praying that the customers aren't too demanding or too impatient. In your mind, the image is clear. Someday you'll be up there in the office, counting money alongside the ones who really run things. No patrols, no running around, no sudden scares. But that day is still far away. Customers show up from time to time, like waves. Some barely speak, others try to bargain like it's a street market. The most dangerous ones are those who approach without even looking around. Either they're desperate, or they're not who they claim to be. A car stops in the distance, engine still running. He watches you. Customer, rival, police, no one's going to tell you which one it is until it's too late. The pay is miserable. You make just enough to get through the day. And if you have a bad night, not even that. And the worst part, even if you manage to stay unnoticed out here, you're nobody. You're the visible face of the business, but the easiest piece to replace. If you get caught or killed, there'll be someone else in your place tomorrow. The most exposed, and the one who earns the least. You know it's unfair. But your motivation doesn't fade, because you still hold on to the hope of making it to the top. Day after day, corner after corner, you learn to recognize faces, music, to spot patrols from a distance, to hide the product in seconds. Little by little, you start moving with more confidence. And that's when an area coordinator takes notice of you, not because of your talent, but because you've spent weeks facing daily danger without complaining or missing a single delivery. You've earned his trust, and he decides to give you the role of lookout. You weren't officially promoted, but now you have a new job. Watch, listen, and warn. You let out a breath because it sounds easier. They place you on a rooftop or at the highest corner of the street. A cheap walkie-talkie in your hands, or a prepaid phone with just enough credit for a single emergency call. Your job is simple. If you see something suspicious, report it. What they don't tell you is that in this game, a late warning means prison or a funeral. You no longer handle the product, you don't even carry money. From below, it might look like a safer job, but it's the opposite. If you fail, everyone goes down, and the blame will be yours. Your mission is to spot patrols before they turn the corner, identify cars' music that don't belong in the neighborhood, and recognize unfamiliar faces that could be undercover. The pressure is constant. You can't blink. From your position, you watch the operation in motion. The dealers who used to be your peers now depend on your voice to stay free. A patrol car appears on the avenue, and at your signal, the street clears out in seconds. But the enemy doesn't always wear a uniform. Some cars cruise by slowly, watching. Some people pretend to be lost just to study the area. And you have to decide in a split second whether to raise the alarm or not, because if you warn without reason, you lose credibility. If you fail to warn when you should, everyone pays the price. Over time, you learn to recognize patterns. You know when the police are just on routine patrol and when they're there because someone tipped them off. You begin to anticipate their moves. And that skill starts to get noticed. A local distribution boss watches you work and decides that maybe it's time for you to move into more important territory and become a neighborhood distributor, where you don't just observe, but also manage what others sell. The block bosses start to recognize you. You feel like you're finally gaining an important position, but in reality, you're doing the same job you did as a lookout, just on a larger scale, with new dangers. Now you're no longer watching from above. You've been assigned a small territory, and your task is to keep several street dealers supplied. You're not the visible face, but if you fail, the street runs dry. And in this business, that's a serious offense. You work from a fixed point, an old apartment, a garage, or a small storage space disguised as a workshop. Inside, there are improvised hiding spots, stash houses, false bottoms in furniture, fake bricks in the wall, compartments inside old appliances. That's where you keep the product. Not much, just enough to keep things moving for the week without drawing attention. But if the police find even one of those stashes, you're looking at trafficking charges. Now, your problem isn't selling fast, it's maintaining a constant flow. Each dealer has their own pace, and if someone sells more than expected, you're the one who has to figure out where to get the extra without leaving a suspicious trail. If you fall behind, you lose money and respect. Quiet nights are dangerous, because when nothing seems to be happening, something is moving in silence. A dealer who doesn't respond could mean they've been arrested, that they've run out of product, or that they've decided to sell on their own. And when that happens, you don't just lose control, you lose the trust of your superiors. You begin to realize it's not just about the product. It's a game of logistics, discipline, and problem solving. And little by little, that discipline turns you into someone who doesn't just wait for orders. In your area, everything is running smoothly, too smoothly, so well that it starts to feel suspicious. You're selling more than ever. New customers keep showing up, which can only mean one thing. The police are more alert than ever, and distributors from other neighborhoods have been taken down. You report this to the regional coordinator, and thanks to you, your area is restructured, allowing you to keep operating. That's when they decide you have the right mindset, and they give you a much bigger responsibility. You're going to infiltrate the police. Now the entire operation literally rests on your shoulders, not just what's sold in your neighborhood, but across the entire city, and you're more exposed than ever. And no, it's not like they give you a uniform or a badge. Your role is to become the ears of the operation inside law enforcement. You get close to lower-ranking officers, some desk clerk at the station, that municipal guard who spends more time in a cafe than on patrol. Small favors, drinks at a bar, discreet envelopes. That's how the door opens. Your mission is simple but vital. Find out when and where raids will happen. Identify undercover operations and learn if there's special surveillance in your area. Information is worth more than any weapon. With it, you can save entire shipments and avoid arrests. One night, you get a tip. The police are planning to sweep several corners at once, and among them is the street where the vendor you've known since your first night's works. The one you shared cold coffee and cigarettes with to get through the long nights. Without thinking twice, you warn him. He packs everything up and disappears minutes before the patrol cars arrive. Thanks to your information, no one gets caught that night, and both your coordinator and rival bosses know it. But more importantly, your old partner knows you saved his life, and in this business, debts are never forgotten. Someday, when you least expect it, that favor will be repaid. Your value within the network grows. You're no longer just a pawn-moving product or a strategic asset. The regional coordinator makes it clear. With this kind of intelligence, you can't stay on the streets alone anymore. We need you moving product yourself. The next step is becoming a local transporter. And from now on, every trip is a calculated risk. But this promotion feels bitter to you. After everything you've given, you feel like you deserve more. You start to question whether it's worth continuing to run, still dreaming of getting your normal life back. Still, with the trust of your superiors, you know it won't be long before you start moving alongside them. But for now, you have to go through this to fully understand the business. And you don't quit. You become a local transporter, and your new job is to move product within the city or region. They give you precise routes and schedules. The advantage is that you know firsthand how the police operate. You know when there are checkpoints, which streets to avoid, and which routes are usually clear. But those routes are never 100% safe. Every trip is like playing Russian roulette. One checkpoint in the wrong place and it's over. And here, if you get stopped, there's no lawyer who can save you. The loads aren't large, but they're valuable enough for more than one person to want to follow you and steal them. That's why you never take the same route twice in a row. You change clothes, switch vehicles, change your behavior. Some days you move through the streets like an ordinary delivery driver, carrying fake boxes or grocery bags filled with nothing. Other days you pretend to be just a passenger traveling with a backpack on your lap. You learn to feel the pressure in the air. If a car gets too close, you speed up or change direction. If a police officer looks at you 2 seconds longer than normal, you come up with an excuse to turn around. And when you finally deliver the package and hear all good on the phone, you feel a relief that lasts only minutes until the next trip. There is no margin for error here. A failed delivery means a lot of money lost and uncomfortable questions. But if you deliver on time, every time, without raising suspicion, you start to become valuable. And that reputation can take you to a safer place or a far more dangerous one, the lab where the product takes shape. They assign you the role of processor, and here things start to get serious. Your contact with the higher-ups becomes more direct, and you discover hidden locations you never could have imagined. They take you to a place that doesn't exist on any map, an improvised lab hidden in the middle of an abandoned industrial zone. The lighting is dim, and the air is thick with the smell of chemicals and gasoline. This is where the product is created, and it's far more dangerous than you ever thought. Your task is to learn the craft from those who've spent years cooking, but every step here is a risk. One mistake in the mix could blow everything up. One distraction, and you inhale fumes that could kill you in minutes. But the danger doesn't come only from the chemicals. Everything here has to move fast, and if a batch isn't perfect, the financial loss is massive. That means your superiors pressure you not to make mistakes. They don't accept excuses. If you ruin a batch, you don't just lose the product, I lose the trust you fought so hard to earn. And maybe much more than that. You can't trust everyone either. Some of the cooks look at you with contempt. Others whisper among themselves when you turn your back. Not everyone wants a newcomer to learn too quickly. Paranoia fills the air like toxic fumes. And worst of all, if the police show up here, you won't have time to run. If they catch you inside, they won't treat you like a simple street dealer. They'll charge you with production, and that means decades in prison. Still, you endure. You learn the process, you get faster, and above all, you keep your mouth shut. If you do everything right, you can stay in this role or move on to transporting and coordinating product across the entire country. But for the first time, the contacts you've built and the good word about you start to pay off, and you skip that step. Your next assignment is to control international shipments. This isn't like dodging checkpoints in the city anymore. Now it's about crossing borders, passing through customs, infiltrating ports and airports without anyone noticing what you're carrying. And here, one mistake doesn't mean losing your job, it means losing everything. The methods change depending on the route. Double-bottom trucks, hidden compartments in fishing boats, containers on cargo ships, or product concealed within legitimate freight on international flights. Sometimes there are even small planes landing on clandestine airstrips in the middle of the night. The logistics are like a game of chess on a global scale. A delay at a port, an unexpected inspection, or a tip to the authorities, and the shipment is lost, along with the head of whoever coordinated it. And it's not just the law you have to avoid. Other groups control routes and key points. If you don't pay the right toll, you don't pass. Your advantage is information. You still have contacts in the police and customs who warn you about special inspections or suspicious movements. That allows you to adjust routes and timing, but it doesn't protect you from everything. Sometimes, betrayal comes from within your own team. If you manage to get the shipment through intact, the payoff is enormous, and your reputation grows even more. The days when you were just selling to addicts in the park are far behind you. Now you're one of the few who can move tons from one continent to another, and that opens the door to the quietest but most dangerous part of the business: money. Here, it's no longer about getting goods past checkpoints. It's about making sure no one can trace millions of dollars in cash. And if someone does, your empire and everything you've built collapses. Now you walk into pristine offices, expensive restaurants, and meetings where everyone wears a suit. At first glance, they look like successful businessmen, but behind every handshake, there's a dirty deal. They're the ones who turn dirty money into clean money. They use shell companies, buy and sell properties, and move funds between countries through financial networks so complex that even a real bank might fail to detect them. This is what you imagined from the beginning, being surrounded by money and powerful people with no police chasing you. And in part, it's true. At this level, the police don't chase you, but intelligence agencies might. Tax authorities might. And even your own partners could be watching for any sign that you're taking more than your share. One wrong move, one misplaced transfer, or one partner who talks too much, and all eyes turn to you. The risk is double. If you do it wrong, you end up in prison. If you do it too well, you become a threat to those above you. And threats don't last long. Here, the violence is quieter. There are no shootouts in the streets, but one phone call is enough for your name to disappear from every list. If you manage to operate for a while without leaving a trace, your value within the organization skyrockets. And that value can take you to the next level. Controlling not just the money, but an entire territory. You become the boss. Getting here isn't by chance. Now you control the entire operation across a whole region. And what that means is that every gram sold, every shipment that comes in, and every dollar that moves passes through you. Your territory is divided into subcells, dealers, lookouts, distributors, transporters, and cooks. They all answer to you or to someone you've appointed. If one of them fails, it's your problem. And if someone breaks the rules, you decide whether they keep breathing or not. But the real challenge isn't moving the product, it's maintaining balance. Too much violence, and you draw the attention of the police and the media. Too little, and rivals think they can step into your territory. You have to be diplomatic with some and ruthless with others. One day, you're closing a deal in an upscale restaurant. The next, you're overseeing a punishment in an abandoned warehouse. And at this level, you don't just give orders downward, you answer upward too. The top bosses want results. And above all, they want the flow of money and product to never stop. Paranoia becomes routine. You might be having dinner with a partner, and that same partner could be secretly negotiating with your rivals. You might think a neighborhood is under control, only to discover it's already being infiltrated by another organization. Your job is to detect those cracks before they become impossible to fix. If you can keep the territory stable and generate consistent profits, you earn a privilege few ever reach. A seat at the high table where decisions don't just affect your region, but entire countries. Now you decide the direction of international operations. You negotiate with other cartels, make deals over routes, control production in distant countries, and oversee the global transport of tons. Every decision you make moves millions or starts wars. You find yourself in mansions overlooking the ocean, on discreet yachts, or in luxury hotel halls far from the noise of the streets. There are no weapons in sight, but everyone at that table has the power to erase an enemy from the map with a single phone call. And most importantly, this is where they don't just discuss prices and routes. They also divide territories, political favors, and bought silence. But even at the top, real power isn't always visible. There are figures who rarely appear in public, the true power brokers, politicians who block laws, businessmen who launder fortunes, bankers who move millions without leaving a trace, and security chiefs who guarantee protection in exchange for massive bribes. They don't give direct orders, but their decisions can protect you or destroy you in a matter of hours. These invisible players are what keep the operation running when everything else seems ready to collapse. Without them, shipments get seized, judges hand down sentences, and accounts are frozen. With them, everything flows as if it were part of the legitimate economy. The problem is, their loyalty is never free. Today, they work with you. Tomorrow, they could be with your enemy. They are allies only as long as the business is profitable, and they disappear the moment they sense the ship is sinking. But at this level, power no longer tastes like anything. It's been years of living on edge, risking your life, and losing everything that truly matters. Because while you were climbing the ranks, your children were growing up without you. You missed their games, their birthdays, even their struggles. And although money paid for everything, it couldn't buy back their childhood. That's why, when you finally reach the top, The real dream is no longer moving tons or closing million-dollar deals. It's walking away from it all, disappearing from the map, and finally being home to fulfill the only role that truly matters: being a father. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to support the channel by leaving a like and subscribing to receive new videos.